What if the richest family in Europe suddenly lost it all? In the 15th century, the Medici Bank was the lifeblood of Florence, controlling wealth and power across the continent. Founded by Giovanni di Bicci de' Medici, the bank grew into a vast financial empire, funding everything from papal elections to merchant ventures and shaping European politics. But its fall was as dramatic as its rise. Under Lorenzo de' Medici, lavish spending, risky loans, and political intrigue began to unravel the bank's stability. Loans to monarchs like Edward IV of England went unpaid, draining resources and sowing distrust. Meanwhile, distant branches suffered from fraud and mismanagement, further eroding confidence. By the late 1400s, a series of bankruptcies struck, and the once unstoppable Medici Bank collapsed. The dynasty's financial ruin sent shockwaves through Europe, altering the balance of power and leaving Florence's future uncertain. Though the Medici family would eventually regain political influence, their legendary bank was gone forever, an enduring lesson in the dangers of unchecked ambition, poor oversight, and financial overreach. Imagine a military force rolling out machine guns, not against an invading army, but thousands of flightless birds. In late 1932, Australia faced an unexpected enemy, the emu. After a surge in emu populations devastated wheat crops across Western Australia, desperate farmers sought government intervention. In response, the military deployed soldiers armed with Lewis guns to stem the feathery tide. The result? Chaos and confusion. Emus proved surprisingly strategic, splitting into small, fast-moving groups that dodged bullets and outmaneuvered vehicles with ease. Over several weeks, soldiers fired thousands of rounds, yet the emus barely flinched. The birds were too quick, too numerous, and too resilient for the military's efforts. The operation was eventually declared a failure, with the emus emerging as the unlikely victors. This bizarre episode became known as the Great Emu War, a strange chapter in history where nature outsmarted modern weaponry. Today, it stands as a quirky reminder that sometimes, even with all our technology and firepower, the natural world can still win the day. What if ancient rocks could speak? Deep in the Kalahari of northwestern Botswana, the Sodilo Hills rise abruptly from the flat savanna, sheltering one of humanity's oldest art galleries. These sacred hills, often called the Louvre of the desert, are adorned with over 4,500 rock paintings, many dating back thousands of years. The artwork features animals, human figures, hunting scenes, and mysterious geometric shapes, providing a vivid window into the beliefs and daily lives of early African communities. Unlike more famous sites, Sodilo's paintings are the legacy of multiple cultures: the Sand People, Bantu-speaking groups, and others whose identities are now lost to time. Some images depict long-extinct animals and vanished ways of life, hinting at climates and ecologies very different from today. Archaeological finds here include ancient tools, jewelry, and even fish bones, suggesting that this arid region was once teeming with water and wildlife. The hills themselves hold spiritual significance, believed by local communities to be the resting place of ancestral spirits. The Sodilo Hills are a unique chronicle of human creativity, adaptation, and spiritual connection to the land, preserving stories that span millennia and continue to inspire wonder. Have you ever heard of a trial so bizarre that the defendant was already dead? In 897 AD, Rome witnessed the infamous Cadaver Synod, a moment in history that defies belief. Pope Stephen VI, embroiled in fierce political and religious conflicts, ordered the exhumation of his predecessor, Pope Formosus, to face charges posthumously. The decayed corpse was dressed in full papal robes and propped upright on a throne in a council chamber filled with church officials. Stephen VI accused Formosus of perjury, violating church law, and unlawfully ascending to the papal seat. A deacon was appointed to speak on behalf of the deceased pope, but the outcome was predetermined. Formosus was found guilty, his papal acts were annulled, and his 3 blessing fingers were severed. His body was stripped of its vestments, thrown into a shallow grave, and later exhumed again to be cast into the Tiber River. The grotesque spectacle horrified the people of Rome, sparking outrage and violent riots. The backlash was swift. Stephen VI was imprisoned and met a brutal death within months. The Cadaver Synod remains one of the most macabre and surreal episodes in the history of power struggles, illustrating how far rivalries could go in the shadow of the Church's authority. What would you do if everyone around you suddenly started dancing and couldn't stop? In July 1518, the city of Strasbourg, now in France, experienced one of history's most baffling events, a mysterious dancing mania that gripped dozens of people. It began when a woman named Frau Trophea stepped into the street and danced uncontrollably for days. Within a week, dozens more joined her, spinning and leaping with no ability to stop, despite growing exhaustion and pain. Local authorities, believing the dancers suffered from overheated blood, encouraged the frenzy by hiring musicians, hoping the dancing would burn off the affliction. Instead, the situation worsened. Contemporary reports suggest that as many as 400 people were caught in the dance epidemic, with some reportedly dancing themselves to death from stroke, heart attack, or sheer exhaustion. The cause remains a mystery. Some historians suggest mass hysteria triggered by extreme stress, famine, or religious fervor, while others propose ergot poisoning from moldy rye, which can cause hallucinations and convulsions. Despite numerous theories, the true reason the dancing plague of 1518 remains one of history's strangest and most haunting enigmas. What if a royal celebration suddenly became a nightmare? In November 1520, Stockholm was buzzing with excitement as Christian II of Denmark was crowned King of Sweden. Nobles, clergy, and citizens gathered for days of festivities, believing the brutal civil war had finally ended and peace was at hand. But beneath the surface, tensions simmered, fueled by decades of rivalry and political intrigue. On November 7th, the guests were summoned to a grand banquet in the city's main hall. Suddenly, the doors were locked, and Christian II accused the Swedish nobility of heresy against the Catholic Church, using this charge to justify a brutal purge. Within hours, the joyful atmosphere dissolved into terror. Over the next 3 days, nearly 100 people, nobles, clergy, and prominent burghers were arrested, tried in sham courts, and executed in the city square. Heads rolled, bodies were displayed as grim warnings, and Stockholm was plunged into horror and despair. The Stockholm bloodbath shocked Europe and sparked outrage across Sweden. Far from quelling resistance, Christian's act of terror ignited a fierce rebellion. One survivor, Gustav Vasa, escaped and led the uprising that ultimately expelled the Danes, laying the foundation for an independent Sweden. A royal feast turned infamous massacre changed history forever. Imagine waking up to a ship docking in your city's harbor, only to discover it carries a silent killer. In October 1347, the Sicilian port of Messina witnessed an ominous arrival. A Genoese trading vessel limped into harbor, its crew ravaged by a mysterious illness. The few survivors were covered in black boils, feverish and delirious. Unbeknownst to the townspeople, these sailors bore one of history's deadliest pathogens, Yersinia pestis, the bacterium behind the Black Death. As the frightened citizens hurried the ship away, it was already too late. The disease spread like wildfire, carried by fleas on black rats that scurried ashore. Within days, Messina was gripped by panic and death. The plague's journey had begun, sweeping through Sicily and across Europe at breakneck speed. Entire families vanished, markets closed, and fear permeated every corner of society. The arrival of that single ship in Messina marked the beginning of a pandemic that would claim millions of lives, shatter economies, and alter the course of European society forever. One vessel, one moment. History transformed. What happens when a tree nearly triggers a global crisis? In August 1976, a poplar tree stood at the center of one of the world's most fortified borders, the joint security area between North and South Korea. US and South Korean soldiers attempted to trim the tree, which obstructed the view between checkpoints. Suddenly, North Korean guards attacked, killing 2 US officers with axes in a brutal and unexpected assault. The world held its breath as tensions soared. In response, the US launched Operation Paul Bunyan, a massive show of overwhelming force designed to avoid further bloodshed. Hundreds of troops, armored vehicles, and even fighter jets were deployed to the area. Engineers, shielded by heavily armed soldiers, chainsawed the tree down in just 42 minutes. The operation was meticulously planned to demonstrate resolve without provoking additional violence. North Korea watched silently, fully aware that any aggression would be met with immediate and decisive retaliation. Operation Paul Bunyan ended without further bloodshed, but sent a clear message. Even the smallest incident could ignite international tension. This episode remains a striking example of how symbolic acts can escalate into major standoffs, revealing the fragile balance of power in a divided land.